You have, yeah.
I'm aware of this.
You haven't seen it, okay. I can't remember, it's either the third or fourth time, but it's changed a little bit.
Is it this week?
All right, so we are on the hour, and I made an executive decision with this presentation. So when I created this presentation, it was for a 90-minute presentation, and as I was looking at it, I was thinking about what to cut out, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to give it all to you. So I cut out a little bit just to make it more succinct, but you're getting the whole thing. It's going to be kind of fast. I may not give as many examples, but you're going to get all of it. That's the plan. All right? So I am Darren Olsen. I am a psychologist at Children's Mercy. I'm on the autism team. I do both evaluations for those who may be diagnosed with autism, and I also do a lot of parent training. I personally like to see a lot of the teenagers, and so that's what this is. Even though the title does have teens in it, I do like to say a lot of the stuff that I talk about goes beyond teenagers. This can be applied to little kids. It can definitely be applied to adults. But there is some stuff that has a strong sort of teenager flavor to it too. Some of the stuff is actually a little bit of an extension. If you were in Dr. Kraut's conversation about puberty and things like that, there are some things that I kind of also talk about. So there is some overlap. And there will be times when I'll ask for questions, but since I'm like given everything, I might just keep talking a lot. There we go. Okay, we got to do the disclaimer stuff, housekeeping stuff. It's informational, so basically, if someone else, if another qualified professional has told you to do something different than what's here, do that, not this. The examples here may not be representative of all of Children's Mercy, they're mine, and not everything here is applicable to every single person. All right. Okay. So we're talking about independence. Here's one area I'm going to ask. What does that mean? What's independence?
Being able to function alone without the
Okay.
support of another.
Function alone, all right. What other ideas do we have about what independence is?
Kind of being yourself.
Being yourself, okay. Any other ideas?
Can make decisions on your own.
You make some decisions on your own? All right. So, I'm going to chip away at this idea of independence because it's not this, okay? That's independence, right? What we kind of think is that independence is like not requiring help from other people. I require help from other people every minute of every day. I did not make the clothes that are on my back. I didn't build the car that got me here. I didn't find where the gas was to put in that car that got me here. This clean water didn't come from me. I don't know how to clean water and make it. We're actually not very independent, okay? We are extremely dependent on other people. I even thought this morning, like, what about when I go camping? Am I really independent? Well, I didn't make the tent that I sleep in, right? I didn't make the matches that I used to make that cool fire. I feel so cool making that fire. So, what actually is independence? What are we going for here? Really what we're going for is this idea that we are needing less help from other people over time, okay? We will never really be independent unless you're living like on a deserted island and you're like making your own clothes and killing your own food and that kind of stuff, okay? So as we're talking about this idea of independence, I'm going to call it the independence process. And that's really what it is. It is the process that we take from being babies that are like basically 100% dependent on other people to being adults that are a little bit less dependent on other people. But we're still very, very dependent on the people around us. And I actually took, I just added this spiky and uneven skill profile because the gentleman with the T-Mobile shirt, he said, talking about his own, the peaks and valleys of his own skills. I was like, that's the concept that I keep trying to wrap my head around with independence and this independent process. He nailed it. He was saying, if you didn't hear, he goes to an employer and he has one skill and the employer's like, oh, you're so good at that. And they give him another task that's similar and he's like, that I'm not good at. That's the same kind of process, okay? And we're going to talk a lot about how when we see those peaks and valleys, the spiky and uneven skill profile, I'm always going to keep that in this slide deck now. That's okay. That's being a human being. And the process is, okay, we see those peaks and we see that uneven profile. Where are we pushing? Where are we going to be a little less reliant on other people? And if there's some areas that's like, this is a no-go, okay. Well, I won't spoil it. I won't get into that too much, but I just really appreciated that comment that he made. I wish he was here. I would have given him credit. Okay. So where does this process start, other than like going from a baby? These are the three areas that I like to focus on. So, I'm a psychologist at a children's hospital. This is very like kind of caregiver centric, like people who are caring for teenagers. But this also again applies to adults. It applies to self-advocates. Three main things I'm going to go over. Whatever the skill is that you're trying to become more independent on, break it down, make it visual, and support communication. And I'm going to keep coming back to those three things over and over and over again. We're actually going to apply that to hygiene and money. Break it down, make it visual, and support communication around that skill. Okay? And I'll get to one more at the end. Okay, so what does that mean? Break it down was the first thing that I was talking about. Breaking it down, you really think about any skill, name a skill. I'll ask you, what is something that you hope someone could be more independent on? Just say something. Toilet training. Where was that? You said it? Okay. Toilet training. What is toilet training? Toilet training is knowing where the bathroom is. No, back up. Knowing when you need to go. Right? Then knowing where the bathroom is. Knowing how to get the button undone, the zipper undone, pants pulled down. Sitting on that scary cold toilet thing that has a hole in it. And then actually going, and then wiping, and then washing. Like, what that is, each one of those is a skill, right? And we put those tiny skills all together and we call it toilet training, right? If you're missing some of those, you end up missing the whole thing. Like if you don't know when it's time to go, you're going to have a hard time toilet training, Okay? So we have to recognize that there are little skills that go into these big skills. And I can't tell you how often I ask parents that I see, I say, okay, well, how do you like get ready in the morning? They're like, oh, well, if we can't break it down, how the heck is this teenager gonna break it down, right? There are times when I want my kids to do stuff and I'm like, how would I do that? You just kind of do it. Oh, I need to take the big and I need to break it down. I need to find the small skills to identify how to help them do what part they can do. And I swear, if you're just like, I'm gonna tune out from here on out, then take that one right there. Which part can they do? Okay? So if you're thinking like the toilet training thing, if they can turn the water on when it's time for the hand washing, by golly, let's get them turning on that water. Okay? That's the small skill within that whole big thing that they can do. So cool. Let's build off of that. Okay? Now, I'm just talking, I just had the example of toilet training, but this applies to everything. What parts of this process, these little skills, are available to them, and let's highlight that skill. Let's not spend too much of our time thinking about all that you can't. You can turn on the water, and that is a start, and that is awesome. Okay? So that was the break it down. Visuals. Okay, so we think about visuals as like a little kid thing, except it's not. Have you ever made a to-do list? You made a visual, right? Have you ever looked at a calendar? It's a visual, right? Have you ever put a sticky note somewhere? Say it with me. It's a visual, right? This isn't a little kid thing. This is a human being thing, okay? And that's okay. So if we like to make things visuals because we need to, and a lot of autistic adults will say, when I have something written down or something that I can see, it makes it easier for me to remember. Great. Okay, let's make it visual then. So again, this is more like the little kiddish stuff. Clocks. I only have so much time. I have to skip some cool examples and things like that. That up there, that is video modeling. Okay. Video modeling is a really cool thing. If you are trying to figure out, well, how do I teach, someone to like fold laundry? YouTube will tell you how to fold laundry. And there's probably going to be a lot more buy-in from this 13-year-old who's like, oh gosh, laundry. Like, look, the video says this. Right? Okay. And we're going to get to that here in a second. But video modeling, just find a video of it. And less talking you have to do, more visual, right? And it's YouTube, so it's automatically cooler. All right, a task analysis is this combo, all right? It's literally the break it down, make it visual combo that we got going here. We're breaking it down into its tiny steps, and we're making those tiny steps into something visual, okay? So if you haven't done any task analyses or anything like that, guess what? To-do list is essentially a task analysis of your day. You've broken down what your day needs to look like, you wrote it down, voila, okay? Those words, even though here is like actual little pictures, a task analysis can also be the words. To-do list, okay? So those are the first two things I wanted to get at, and the third one I said was supporting communication, okay? Now, I don't have like a good way to say communication isn't just the words, and that's what's here on the screen, like the ability to communicate. It is also the comfort with voicing opinion and things like that, right? We are talking about teenagers, opinions will happen, and finding the space where that is okay, and putting that in a space where we are actually supporting the no's, but I don't want to do that. but I'm not comfortable with that. It's what we want these teenagers to be able to say in the real world, but when it's in our own home, it's like, oh man, I don't want you to talk back to me. But that is communication. And when we're talking about teenagers, which is what I'm doing today, we're gonna have to find our spots when that is not only okay, but appreciated. Like, all right, you told me no, and it really bothered me. Let's talk about it, okay? That is part of this communication. Communication is also self-advocacy, which I will talk about later. So, one thing that's interesting about doing this presentation is we could have people who are representing autistic individuals who are highly verbal, and we could have people who are their level is nonverbal. Of course, everything in between, peaks and valleys. So sometimes that communication does not even need to be words, okay? And not even just for nonverbal individuals. I'm also talking about people who shut down, and I'm not really in the mood to talk right now. Can I have another way to communicate? Okay. It doesn't have to be words, even if you're supposed to say words. If there are nods, if there are things to, if I can send it to you in a text, okay. Let's support that. Instead of coming head on and saying, no, it needs to be this way, release a little bit and say, all right, what kind of communication is going to work for you, and support that, okay? Now, someone might have thought, well, my 16-year-old doesn't want to. How am I going to get around that? And I'm going to say, I don't know. Because we're talking about teenagers, okay? So, when we're talking about teenagers, we are talking about motivation, and this is an age where we expect internal motivation. We expect you should be motivated by going to school and having friends and cleaning your room, but that might not be the case, okay? The internal motivation for those things might not be there, okay? We either accept it or we make the motivation external. We are not going to get in there and force internal motivation. You should be motivated to clean your room because you're part of this family. It's tempting, not going anywhere, right? And so I do like to think, I love to turn all this on its head and say, what does it look like for myself and other adults? How many here were teenagers? We all raise our hands. As teenagers, did you listen to everything every adult ever told you? No one raised your hand because you didn't, right? That's not how this works. And that can't be our goal, okay? So if our goal is to go head to head and be like, you are going to listen to me at all costs, there's going to be friction, there's going to be hurt feelings, and it's not going to be productive. So we accept, yeah, you are not going to be motivated as a teenager the same things that I think you should be motivated by. You're probably going to be motivated by your video games, and I think you should be motivated by your studies. Teenager, okay? Okay. And hopefully we can accept that and not fight too much. Of course, there's going to be squabbles, but we accept that motivation is going to be different, and in a lot of ways we do need to respect that, okay? That the motivation will be different, just like it was for you when you were a teenager, okay? So what we try to do is, it's in this blue one, it's kind of hard to see, but find a path of least resistance, and that's why I love what the guy with the T-Mobile shirt said about that spiky profile, right? Sometimes we say, okay, I desperately want you to do these freaking dishes, but you hate touching these gross dishes, but you'll put up with sweeping. Maybe we say, this is not the season of your life where you're going to do dishes, and you're going to help me sweep instead, okay? That's the path of least resistance, and we're going to be okay with that, all right? It doesn't mean that this person will never touch a dish for their whole life, but I like to phrase it as seasons, okay? This is not the season that dishes is going to happen right now. Do we find less resistance with sweeping? Okay. Let's develop the sweeping. I hear a question?
What if you did
You did what?
get resistance on sweeping as well?
So you could have someone who is resistant, then maybe you fight it. So that's always an option. That's always like me versus you. Okay. Maybe it's a different skill. Maybe it's like chores are not really happening, but you don't hate walking the dog. So it's not necessarily that you're like helping with like the laundry and the dishes and things like that, but you are helping with the dog. Let's develop the dog. Or maybe I'm going to talk about hygiene and money and social stuff. Like maybe it's something else. Maybe this fight with the chores, maybe it is time to kind of release a little bit. Try again in 6 months. Okay? But what I don't want people to feel like is it's a never thing. Like once, I don't feel like it's giving up. Like that's it. No dishes for you. Try again later. Okay? But I want to open up that space and kind of give people permission. Like sometimes that's the right way to go. Maybe in 6 months the dishes aren't as gnarly. Does that kind of answer your question? Like, of course there could be, I'm not doing that, and I'm not doing that, and I'm not doing that, and I'm not doing that. And that kind of gets at the motivation thing. Then maybe our motivation needs to turn external. All right, you hate it, but your allowance is dependent on it, right? So we could make it external motivation. That's always an option. Another option is, okay, let's do something else. Let's develop a different skill. Okay? And so I'm going to talk about the different areas of independence. There's actually no clock here. Okay, I'm doing all right. And again, I purposely put in there, if you choose. So it is okay with that, like, sort of, I forgot even what he said now, the spiky, uneven profile. It's like, if it's time to push for hygiene, okay, then let's push for hygiene. How many teenagers are internally motivated to be squeaky clean, not smelly? None, right? Like, especially early teenage years, good luck. But showering every day usually wasn't a thing when you're 6, right? Like, you can go a whole week without a shower, and then you might start getting smelly. When you're 16, you barely go 6 hours without being smelly, right?
Is interest in the opposite sex considered intrinsic motivation though? My 15-year-old can take 500 showers a day.
So now
So he is
excellent.
motivated
Okay.
to not be stinky.
There you go. That's the internal motivation
Okay.
that we are not going to create, right? We are not going to force that internal motivation. And that's actually what we hope. Sort of the fake it till you make it. We're like, externally, we're like, okay, what can we do to support that? And then once it's like, oh, I should be clean so I can, suddenly now we've got that internal motivation. Hooray, we've made it. Like, that's the independence process. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So if we have someone who is internally motivated to be super clean and things like that, awesome. There's one of those like high peaks. We're great, right? Good. When they're not, then we got to help out. So some of the things that we try to do, some hygiene is an everyday, some hygiene is a someday. Getting there and talking about that. There are some non-negotiables. There's some things you got to do every day. You're brushing your teeth. Okay, that's an everyday kind of a thing. If it's this isn't here, but I do like to mention if it is a sensory thing, if it's like brushing teeth is aversive because like it really is more sensitive to me than other people, then we're going to try to make it fast. So like a quick brushing teeth is better than none at all because you don't like it. Okay, so if it really is like a sensory difference, try to get through it as quickly as you can. Getting water on your head, that can be a common one. All right, then rinse your head 3 times. There's a little bit of shampoo in there left. Okay, we'll do a little bit later. But if it really is a sensory thing, we try to like get those through pretty quickly, not to be like, we're not trying to torture anybody. That's going to go the opposite direction. Making it visual. Here's some examples of how to do like the visual side of it. So we've got like our nice task analysis. We also can have like the calendar. So if showering is a twice a week thing, put it on the calendar. Make that visual. You're going to shower on Sundays and Thursdays. All right? Now, support communication. So, did you hear what I just said? I said, you are going to shower on Sundays and Thursdays. That's not necessarily supporting communication, so we also have to think about how much buy-in can we get. Can the teenager say, I don't want to shower on Sundays? What days? You got to shower at least twice. Which days work for you? Now we're also supporting their communication, their self-advocacy. Well, I think that Mondays and Saturdays are better. Who am I to ask why that's the case? Okay, let's do it on Saturdays, whatever I just said. So there is that supporting communication. Support the communication, self-advocacy. Let's go to the store. Which shampoo do you want? That might not seem like much, but that is giving your teenager a chance to say, I want to smell like that. Cool. I'd rather you smell like that than what's happening right now. Cool. Let's go with it. So there are a lot of things that can be done to pull in that communication and that advocacy in a showering routine. Now you might say, well, they're still not going to want to because they're 16 and they're not internally motivated. So yeah, teenagers. All right, another area. I'm doing pretty good on that. There's a lot to unpack here. Independent living type stuff. Okay, so don't forget we have this like video modeling. We're talking about cooking, cleaning, that kind of stuff. You could just go on YouTube and just find, again, how to fold laundry, break it down. This is what I tell my kids how to fold laundry. Folding laundry is half-half. That's what folding laundry is, half-half. Half-half. That is what my kids, that is how they fold laundry. You have it, the shirt, half this way, and then I can't fold my hands that way, but half the other way. Half-half, okay? That's breaking it down. If you want to have a video model or something like that, a visual, a show, like you half it this way, you half it this way. And then supporting communication, I hate folding laundry. Okay, then maybe it's dishes. Okay, dishes are nasty. Okay, so, and trying to find that spot where it's like, we finally arrived at sweeping, and maybe laundry is next month. Or maybe you say, this, the month of March is the folding laundry month, but then next month is going to be the dishes month. All right, do you want to do it this month or next month? Support that communication. I added this pro tip because I grew up in a house. This isn't like an autism thing, it's an ADHD thing. I have a lot of ADHD in my family. And getting somewhere on time is not happening with my mom. So I have had to teach myself to do this. So time management, good luck, we're talking about teenagers, but say this out loud. Anchor what time you have. So you have an appointment at 9, okay? The appointment is at 9. Do not let 9 be in your or their head. 9 will get you there late every time, okay? You have to say this out loud. It takes us 15 minutes to drive. We need 5 minutes to park and a few minutes to walk up. So to be safe, we're leaving at 8:30. 9 is the only time you've said 9 is to work yourself back. Everything else is about 8:30. Okay? It has to be. You need their mind to be on 8:30, and you need to tell them how you got there, why you said 8:30. Because if you say 9, you'll be like my mom, and by extension me, leave at 9, because you talked about 9, and then you get there at 9:30 and you're late. Okay, keep moving. I told you this is going to be all of it. Leisure time. This is not something that we think about very often. For little kids, we'll call it self-play skills. For teenagers, we're not talking about self-play usually. We're talking about entertaining yourself. How do teenagers entertain themselves? They're on screens, right? Which I go back and forth. I actually do have a teenager. She's 13 now. If given the opportunity, she'd be on her phone 24 hours a day, 7 days. So we need to develop the actual skill to not be with your phone or your switch, or your computer, where appropriate, right? For better or for worse, this is according to Darren Olsen, but I am not one to say, well, screens are bad and you shouldn't be on them. This is a way that kids are connecting with other people. A lot of people will go into professions that require a lot of knowledge of these devices and things like that. A really good spot to develop some of those non-screen skills is to kind of require it or put it before the screen is in their hand. I told you there's a lot of ADHD in my family, a lot of executive function differences. So as a kid, if you would have let me play Nintendo and then I was not done, I hadn't got to a save point, and you try to take me off of that, all bets are off. Right? The guy that you see right here is not that kid. Can't do it. So we need to find opportunity you need to play outside, you need to have some non-screen time, you need to have your snack when you do something, and then you can have your screen after. Because it's really difficult to pull that screen away halfway through, especially if you haven't gotten to a save point, which isn't really a thing anymore apparently. It's just like you're either alive on Fortnite or you're dead. But in Mario, you had to get to a save point. You can put expectations on like chores and things like that. I'll talk about how like reinforcement and things like that kind of prepare people for jobs. Actually, let me just jump into that right now. All right, with money. So another independence process is using money, and I want people to remember $5 now is better than $55,000 later. Okay, so sometimes we have to be willing to say, okay, spend your $5 on that. Like, a pack of Pokemon cards is going to end up in the trash. All right, now you don't have any money, and when you want your game, next month you won't have any money for it. Okay, that's better than blowing all your money while you're trying to save up to buy a house when you're an adult, right? A lot of money stuff is teaching. So, why do we even have this stuff? Why do we have money? Okay, if you can't answer that question, then how is your teenager going to buy it? So think about it. Why actually, and I'm not going to talk about why we have money, but you might get asked. Okay, so think about why we have it. Why is it important? Where do you keep it? How do you save it? How much is it worth? This is so eye-opening for a lot of teenagers, especially, here it is. Number of hours worked to get something. Comparing, okay, so you just mowed that lawn and you got $15 for it. We're going to go over to McDonald's and you're going to see that you can spend all 15 of those dollars on a large fry. So now that real exchange of this money came in and this is how much it gets me. Oh my gosh, I need way more of this money in order to survive. This idea of an essential versus non-essential items. One day, this teenager is going to be, living on their own or living with other people and needing to manage their own money. They're going to need to understand that there are some essential and non-essential items. Sorry, video games fall into that non-essential side, right? You got to have enough money to buy bread. How many teenagers are motivated to buy bread? None of them, but they need to know how much that bread is, how much it costs, that they're going to need it, and how buying that video game might take away from you actually having food. And that happens like at the store. So your teenager is with you, you're at the store, price compare. Like, you go to the store and it says like price per unit, and like the name brand Pop-Tarts are this much, but this Walmart brand are this much, and you can actually see like, all right, remember that $15 you got from mowing? You could spend all 15 on these Pop-Tarts, or you could only spend 3 on this generic brand. All right, I'm showing some of my own cheapness here, but like these are important ideas, important concepts that are not natural. This is not something that we were born. None of us. Nobody here just got that, right? School of Hard Knocks, right? Where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough money for that. Still got time. Okay. Social skills, right? There is a wide array of what this might look like, and we really want to be respectful of how much socialization the individual really wants. I have this conversation so often with parents where they're like, well, yeah, he doesn't really have any friends, like plays video games and maybe has one friend over and then just wants to sit in his room. Maybe that is filling his social cup. It might not look like the way that you think it should go, but that might be enough. Okay. We don't need to fight that. Now, there's going to be some other areas where the person might say, like, I only have one friend. Like, I need more friends. Like, how do I get more friends? And so a lot of this is skills-based. So there's like social skills groups that people can be a part of. This thing up here, the special consideration social interpreter. I was doing an evaluation and at Children's Mercy, and the mom who came in brought a friend, and she called her social interpreter. The mom was an autistic person who recognized in herself she was going to have a hard time being in this evaluation with me, and then also explaining what's going on with her kid. So she brought a friend as her social interpreter, a literal interpreter. So as she was trying to explain things in her own words, her friend could be like, oh, so what she's saying is, oh, thank you. And it wasn't like a negative thing, right? It was an adult at this point recognizing, I'm going to say things a little bit differently, and someone else might not understand this, but I have a friend who does. I have a friend who gets me. You're going to come with me and help. Great. That's awesome. That is tons of supporting communication, right? This walk away, sometimes this one is more of like, it was the lunchtime, when he was talking about the kid who got onto like video games, and he just like followed him into the bathroom, and just talking and talking and talking. It's okay to like give some of those nonverbal cues and then point out like, did you see how I walked away? Did you see how I turned my back? Those are the moments when you need to either ask me, you need to support that. Like, you need to ask me if that's okay, or ask me if I'm done having this conversation. It's been said, and it was said in the last presentation, getting into groups around maybe it wasn't last week. It's been said multiple times. Interests, sort of that find your tribe kind of thing. The guy in the T-Mobile shirt, he really blew me away with his questions. When he was asking about like the stimming and those times that actually make him happy, like, we want to support that too. Recognize that, like, if you have these interests and you want to be in a group of people that talk D&D, Mario, like whatever, cool. I text my friends about sports all freaking day. Like, there are many people who would like want to talk about like the trade from this random team and things like that. But I've got a group of a couple friends, and we just analyze this stuff to a ridiculous amount, and we think it's hilarious, but no one else would really want to. But like, I have that little group of friends that are as weird sports-wise as me. I think it's awesome. And so supporting that too socially. Okay. Decision. We're getting into like the more sticky stuff. Okay, decision making. Oh, I'm not doing as good on time as I thought. Okay, some highlights here. This is when this is the independence process more so for parents than the teenagers, because we know that teenagers are probably going to want to be more opinionated in this area with making decisions. It's very much the caregivers and things like that being willing to say, okay, you want to stay up later. You want to go out sometimes. Let's find a spot where let's move curfew. When do you think it should be? 4 a.m. When do I think it should be? 9. All right, let's find somewhere in the middle. Okay, so we're not saying make it 4 a.m., but we might need to have these conversations with teenagers and saying, look, I want to support you. You're a teenager now. You've got opinions. I don't want to set the bar so far over here that you're just going to stay out all night instead. Let's change curfew. Maybe it's, Mom, I hate showering in the morning. Okay. Maybe you're a nighttime shower. Maybe you like it in the afternoon. So on Saturdays you're going to take a shower in the afternoon. And that's what I mean by the order of events up there. If you can involve them in some decisions, even if it's where should we eat, okay. This is way harder for the parents than it is for the teenagers, right? But finding those spots to be able to say, I want to hear from you. What do you think? What do you think we should do? I'm going to, this is like a side thing. I don't care if I don't have enough time. So, if you've never seen this book, you should see this book. Solving Executive Function Challenges. It is part of a broader curriculum called Unstuck and on Target. This is like the parent part of Unstuck and on Target. It is incredible. It's not necessarily like an autism thing or an ADHD thing. It's having to do with our brain and our executive functions. And here are some of the things that they talk about. So when we're talking about decision making, option A, option B thinking is one of the main ways that I encourage parents to talk to their teenager. Option A, option B thinking is, teenager, you have an option right now. So I've told you you can't go out this week. You're staying home. You're upset about it. Option A is you can stay here and you can be upset with me and cry about it and not talk to me. Option B is you can be in your room and you can scream in your pillow or something like that. Take a few deep breaths and come out and we can move on with our day and it'll be okay. We're not saying it's not going to be amazing, but presenting life situations as this is an option. You do have the option to be mad about this, or I'm having a hard time thinking of another example, but saying yes, this is an option. You can take this path, or you can take this path, and this is where they lead, and the decision is yours, not mine. Okay, so I'll show them that there's always an option. They always do have 2 or more. There's lots more options. Big deal, little deal is kind of separating like, okay, we're really upset that we can't go to Chick-fil-A right now. Is this a big deal or a little deal? To them it feels like a big deal. Is this different than if we got to a car crash or like the car wasn't working, something like that? That's like the big deal. Maybe not going to Chick-fil-A right now. Maybe it's more on that little deal kind of thing. You're going to have to point out when there are big deals. When something really is a big deal, you're going to need to say, okay, grandma's in the hospital. We're in big deal, okay? So we need to focus on this because it is a big deal, which can sort of calibrate, not going to Chick-fil-A on a Friday night is more little deal. Choice, no choice. Choice, no choice is there are some things that I'm going to involve you in. You do have a choice of what show you watch, maybe when you do your homework. Like there are lots of areas where you do have choices. This is a no choice situation. This is one that I'm going to have my foot down and say, you've got to do this. Maybe it is you have to do your homework or something like that. There has to be both sides. You have to point out the times when this is a choice situation. You can tell me when it's time to go to bed. This is a no choice. This one's mine. We're not going to have an argument about this one, okay? So I don't have enough time to go into more examples. And this idea of compromise is probably too much for the time I have. All right. And that's my own fault. Okay. Emotional sort of development. So they got to be able to tell you no. All right? And there's going to have to be times when they say no, and we say, I respect that. Isn't that exactly what we want them to do when they're out in the real world? To be able to tell someone no. Like someone says, buy that for me. This is my only money. Buy it for me. Okay. We want them to say, no, this is my only money. This is my $15 from mowing the lawn. We do want that to happen. We do need to model. We do need to accept that at home. But there's going to be times when they say no, and we say, okay, all right, this is a choice moment, and you have the choice, and you've made a choice not to do that. Okay, I'm going to respect that. Sometimes having meltdowns, so people get really worried, like especially teenagers, like just melting down. The last presenter who was here, the girl, I don't remember her name, but she said after, you remember what was her name?
Hillary.
Hillary said that she was kind of masking right now. She was feeling good, but she was going to go home and she was going to crash because she was going to be exhausted. Right? Okay, that's a self-soothe. So we don't always need to be worried about those moments. If Hillary goes home, teenager Hillary goes home and is just like, bleh, falls down on the bed, it's just cover over her head, leave me alone. Okay, that's what she needs. Like sometimes it feels like, oh no, something's wrong, and sometimes the Hillarys just need to decompress. Okay, let's let her decompress. Okay, so even respecting that, even respecting those coping moments, sometimes those outbursts are actually moments where this person is self-soothing. And these ones in purple, if there's another thing I want you to remember, it's right there. It's okay to push. It's okay to have people do hard things. It's okay if they fail. It is okay if you cry about it. It's okay if they cry about it. Okay? But this is I want to open up and be like, yes, they're going to fail. Did we? Did you? I know I did. I don't know how I'm here right now. But somehow it worked out, and it's going to happen, and that is part of the independence process. We've talked a lot about self-advocacy, like right up on time. We do want that first one, youth who are supported in fostering their strengths and their voice are more likely to be self-advocates. If we are saying okay, and we're supporting their voice to say, I am good at this and I will do this, but I do not like that. Okay, that's one of these valleys, and we're not going to push too hard right now. They're far more likely to be stronger self-advocates. Awesome. So we want to support that in the home as they're growing up. Vocational stuff, basically, reward. This is so much, but reward systems at home kind of mirror jobs. So if you're saying, look, I need you to mow the lawn, do the dishes, things like that, this is the money that you're going to earn from it. We call it a reward system. That's a job. Okay, cool. So if you decide, I'm not going to mow the lawn, I'm not going to do the dishes, that money's not coming to you. When you don't have money, you can't buy the video game or the bread, right? So that we can sort of set up job-like things for 13-year-olds. You want the money, here are the things you got to do. You decide no, it's not coming, and you don't have that money now. That's a job. That's exactly what we do for jobs, except it doesn't go on like your resume. Shoot, I just don't have enough time for this. Thought I could do it. Dr. Prout talked a lot about this. If you're not having these conversations, who is, right? If you're not talking about sex, if you're not talking about drugs, if you're not talking about how people can take advantage of you, all of the craziness that goes on the internet, if that conversation isn't being had at home, then they're learning it somewhere else. It's not like it's not happening. It's happening. So have these conversations. I just have to keep going. Here are some resources. Healthy Bodies. If you haven't seen this, these are just for education for yourself and for the teenagers. It's by Vanderbilt. There's both one for boys and girls. I'm gonna zip through this. I found this on the internet. This book about sexual health for internet. Be Internet Awesome. haven't seen what the Internet Awesome is actually like a little game. And I have a major gamer son, and he thought it was cool, and he is like more safe on the internet because of it. And it's free by Google. The Internet Awesome is what it's called. Like they literally play a game like Pokemon, but it's not actually Pokemon. The push and pull of having a teenager, they're gonna love you they're gonna hate you at 6 a.m. They might love you around 3. Like you're gonna feel that in and out. You're gonna feel that up and down. Yes, because you're not gonna take the teenager out as a teenager. Your teenager is gonna be a teen, no matter what else is going on. I wish I had more time for this. I'm almost at the end. We gotta talk about some really hard stuff. We're talking about teenagers, so we also need to talk about safety. When it comes to self-harm, especially with suicide, let's say it out loud, means restriction is one of the most important things that you can do. Because a lot of times you have somebody who's kind of like, oh, life's kind of sucky, but they're not necessarily harming themselves, and then down they come. I am going to take action against myself now. That's when we don't want them to have access to something that can harm them. And that's what means restriction is kind of all about. So it's not don't have a gun, it's not don't have medications in house. It's when that turns, I'm doing this today, don't have access to that thing that can fatally harm them. Okay? And then what often happens is they hit that bottom, those means are restricted, they come back up. Life is still sucky, but I'm not going to hurt myself. Okay, here we go. A bunch of other stuff. Here's all your roles as a caregiver. Be overwhelmed by it. Oh my gosh, I've said so much. Remember I said that there was one more thing? 1 minute over. I said that there was one more thing. Break it down, make it visual, support communication. One thing trumps all of them. It's that you're going to love them and you're going to listen to them. All right? That, above anything else I've told you, if you are loving them, you are listening to them when they want to talk to you, verbally or non-verbally. But you're available to do that. You're available to be there and just connect. Maybe sometimes it's just a physical connection, arm around them. You're winning, even if you haven't done anything else. But having that connection when they're ready for it is more important than anything else I've told you. Okay? The end. There you go. Technically, you have 2 minutes over, but people can go, like your day is done. I'm also here to answer questions if you want. But I want to be respectful of your time. Yes, of course. Oh, fill out the little survey thing too.
Go back to that intimate relationship.
Yes, sorry, I had to like fly through that. That one?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. I always have more meetings at Oh, I have a 12-year-old right now, just a lot of listening. There's just moments where I don't know what that was behind, but she can throw a lot of ended up passing on. I was like, that's communication. I will take it.
Absolutely.
We'll come back to it later.
Exactly, and that's so important. Those moments of like, you want to talk over notes under the door. I'm here for it.
And now we start to go to school, and we have students in school practice like advocacy and yes or no. It's great. It's really great. But it's hard.
Good.
So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks. Yeah.
On how you ended up like
Okay.
hey, and I
Sure.
I just
So you mean just like getting like.
okay, rock paper scissors or like you know what I mean?
I'm gonna pull in that guy right there.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. He is
That's not how I want to be able to.
Yeah.
that guy right there.
Right now, it's kind of just like whoever.
I did just say the word.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But this is signed up.
Hi, I'm Kim. Nice to meet you. I was just saying, I work at University. I'm at the OPC, and I like really interested in like learning more on working with autistic kiddos. But any sort of community whoever walks through the door,
Sure,
you know.
sure.
And you mentioned like being on a team specifically focuses on autism, so this is like additional certifications I should get. Should that
Say your
I can say no.
your degree. What your current role is a LPC.
PLPC,
PLPC.
yeah.
Okay. So technically, you don't actually need anything else to be effective. I think the thing number one might be trying to build in. Imagine your business person work. I'm not gonna say like, oh, do this like that, do this like.
Yeah.
I think the real like first step might be figuring out, okay, I'm doing a lot of anxiety stuff, or I'm doing a lot like whatever your bread and butter is, like how can I like do that plus use your
Yeah,
it's like you don't have to like totally throw everything you're doing out the window,
Yeah.
but how can you like plus it up, enhance it? And so there's great actually. So in a month there's another conference in town, the Lakeborn Symposium, and it's Psychiatry, Community Mental Health. One of the talks that I'm very excited to sit in the front row on is a psychologist who specializes in like adapting evidence-based mental health interventions for kids on the spectrum. And it's not throwing out everything you know, it's what you know, and individuals, building in communication stuff. Like it's not rocket science, but it is tricky. Like it's new for all of us unless we get coaching on it. And so those kinds of resources are out there, whether you go to that thing or not. But two other resources come to mind. One is like, it's, we wrote it for the Missouri Department of Mental Health, and it's for like direct service professionals, but also case managers and also psychiatrists, and like it's for anybody in the mental health space who's like, oh, I have this client with a co-occurring condition, they have autism and ADHD or and anxiety or and whatever else, and we tried to do like a really clear lit review of like, hey, this is what you can actually go out and do. And so getting to know that stuff, see what's interesting, and then if you find yourself really, really into adapting cognitive behavioral strategies, like you could look for continuing education or other next steps for you. Or if you get really into, wow, I'm really interested in these young kids supporting parents and doing that stuff, like we do quite a bit of that ourselves. Like that like taste might lead you in a direction like I should really specialize in this. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's helpful. I just like this field you get in, there's so many different
There's a lot to do. Yeah.
places to work,
Yeah.
and then you're like, do I want to be in school? Do I want to be like, I was ever in practice before I was making like my money? So
Yeah.
I was like, I gotta switch gears here. So
But like there are so many settings where you can do this sort of work in, which is